I'm Samantha Brown, professional organizer, decluttering specialist, and business coach. I created Pro Organizers Coach podcast to empower you to reach new heights in your business. I am on a mission to build a supportive sisterhood of passionate professional organizers. So whether you're a seasoned pro or you're just getting started, this podcast is for you. You ever feel like you're stuck in the same cycles no matter how much you try to move forward? What if I told you that some of those patterns were set before you were even 7 years old? So today I'm sitting down with Jeanette Lowry. We are going to talk about girl, quit looking in the rearview mirror. We're diving into how these early paradigms shape our lives, our businesses, and even how we approach organizing. More importantly, we are going to explore how to break free from those old patterns and step into new ones that truly support your growth. So let's get into it. Hi, Miss Jeanette. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
That is such a Southern way to say it, Miss Jeanette. I love it, love it, love it. I'm doing great. Thank you.
Yeah. So real quick, do you mind explaining what a paradigm even is and how it could even be set before the age of 7?
So a paradigm is a set of beliefs, rituals, things that routinely get done. You know, you might grow up in a family that traditionally goes to church on Sundays or has money issues, always saying money doesn't grow on trees. We never have enough. So there are things that you hear. Your subconscious is picking all this up, even under the age of 7. And it just kind of builds and builds and builds. So with repetition, they say you can change a habit, not in 30 days of repetition. It's 90 days. 30 days, you get the routine down, but 90 days of repetitive transitioning in or out of a paradigm is what it takes. So paradigms, basically, whatever house you grew up in, whatever the adults who were your, main caregivers, I guess, parents for the most part, their beliefs, their traditions, their rituals all came with them from their parents. And so it's just a process of evolving paradigms in family units, generation after generation. And there are some fantastic paradigms, fantastic traditions and beliefs that families have. But when we get to be adulting, we may not like that paradigm, or it may be, stopping us from doing something that we want to be doing, because it just is, I call it the little girl inside, or sitting on the right shoulder, left shoulder, just saying, no, don't go there. You want to change, you want to grow, but your little mini voice is saying, no, it's best just to stay here. This is the way it's always been done. Family's always done it this way. So don't try this, because you'll never make it. So a paradigm is something that we want to absolutely recognize. That's the first thing, is recognition of paradigms. And most adults, if you talk to them, they have no clue that 95% of their day is being run by paradigms in our subconscious mind.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, right? Like if you sit and take the time to actually think about, like, why do I believe what I believe? Or why do I do the things I do? Or why is that thought stopping me? Or why am I allowing my thoughts to stop me? Like, it's all of the stuff that, like, whenever I was getting certified as a coach, like, I had never even thought about the idea of choosing a different thought or looking at my thoughts, much less the patterns created by those thoughts.
Absolutely. And the patterns not only shape your life, but you go into the work environment based on those paradigms and beliefs. You won't step outside of the box, even if something in your soul is just burning that you're meant to do or meant to be or have to offer the world. Yet that paradigm is keeping you stuck. And I always find, say 40, you're the perfect age of the woman who actually starts to question a lot of things. because
Mm-hmm.
we've gone through our, you know, youngster age, and then we start in the real world at 20 or 21, whatever, the real world. So, we take 10, 15 years, maybe start a family, get a new career. And then you look in the mirror and go, I hate what I'm doing. Or why can't I get this extra 20 pounds off me? Or why do I always pick the wrong guys? You know? So we start questioning ourselves. And that's really the magic. That's the intersection at the road where you can actually start recognizing some of these childhood beliefs, paradigms, rituals, traditions, what have you, and say, okay, I'm sick and tired of having my life run by this. Then you can start to make those changes. But like you said, until you recognize and start asking questions.
Yeah, and especially for those of us that are starting a business or have started a business, what I
Uh-huh.
always tell my ladies, I'm like, listen, the more growth you can do on the inside, the more your business can succeed. And I know it
Mhm.
almost seems like, well, how does that make sense? Because me doing work on
Mhm.
the inside is not telling my clients to come to me, but it actually is, because then it's the energy
Mhm.
you're showing up with, it's the way you're talking, it's the way you're acting. And so
Yep.
if we don't start on the inside and we're just trying to, like, be someone that we're not, or do what we think we
Mhm.
should be doing, even if it's not who we
Mhm.
truly are, people
Mhm.
feel that energy. They feel the
Oh,
inauthenticity, and then they're repelled by or they feel something off. They're
the
not sure what it
frequency.
is.
We
Yes,
give
the
off
frequency
frequency.
is off.
Yeah. And
Yes.
it's really, it's a truism. I mean, it's scientifically proven. We all have a frequency that we operate in, and it changes. It can change, as you said, with, getting rid of the trauma and some of the things that are just swamping our mindset, swamping our lives, and start peeling back that onion to uncover who you are as a raw, authentic person. And then you can start putting the layers back on, but you get to choose the layers that you put back on.
Yeah, and it's
Yeah.
very similar to what we do with our clients, right? Like we go in, a lot of them
Mhm.
have, tons of clutter, they have stuff that they're dealing with emotionally. And so
Mhm.
if we haven't dealt with our stuff, it's very hard to go in and help someone else deal with theirs if you've not dealt with your stuff. And then
Absolutely.
on top of that, like the frequency thing you were saying, like the lower frequencies are when you're in like survival mode, right? It's
Yep.
very hard
Yep.
to start a business, to be an inspiration to someone, to,
Mhm.
pull people into, your
Mhm.
joy and happiness. And, it's hard to do that when you're still in survival mode on like a lower frequency.
It's
And the
impossible
more
to do that.
impossible, yes.
Impossible. Yep.
Yeah.
Impossible.
And I think a lot of, I think a lot of us, we're like, give me, especially my type of ladies, right? Like we're emotional sometimes, but we're also very type A. We're like, just give me a good to-do list. Like tell me the boxes to check and I will go do
Yeah.
it? Yeah. And so it's really hard when you're that type of person that's like, I can just
Mhm.
push through. I'll just push through, just do it, just give me the stuff to do. But then someone says, well, hold on. You can't really go through the checklist. It's not going to work for you until you look inward.
When we say that, look inward, it's like, what is she talking about? It's like
Mm-hmm.
woo language, right?
Yes, right. Yeah.
Yes.
And so exactly, like what do you normally, cuz I know that you have a program too. And so like your women the first week or two, what do you kind of suggest that they do? Which I know yours are just starting businesses as well, but no
Mhm.
matter what, if you're just getting open to this idea of like paradigms and looking at it, what would be your first like suggestion?
Well, my pivot program, it's 16 weeks, and it's about teaching women how to fire their boss, earn a recurring income so that they can be home. But it doesn't start with the money, and it doesn't even start with the business, systems. It starts with looking inside. So
Mhm.
we do start with paradigms. That is the first thing we start with. And really dig deep. I'm going to give you the lead magnet, girl. Put looking in the rear view mirror for your guests. And there's some exercises in there that you can do. I mean, I would highly recommend you do them. And
Mm-hmm.
paradigms, it's about unpacking your childhood. It's about this free thought, let the thoughts flow, just get a quiet space. I don't care if it's by a river or in your closet if you've got kids like mine used to be, just somewhere that you can just let thoughts flow and just start writing. Don't
Mm.
worry about grammar, any of that. Start writing, and then you'll find your top 3, 4 paradigms that are operating your life today because you'll hear the voice coming up. And so there's exercises that I just gave you a couple of them in this lead magnet, but it's really important. And once women do this, they go, I had no idea. I had no idea that I constantly have that chatter that my mom used to have, which is, we're short. We don't have enough money. There's no money at the end of the month. And so
Mm-hmm.
that's the voice that's going off in your adult head. And so when somebody says, I'd like to show you a business opportunity that you could make millions, they're going, go take a hike because their paradigms are saying there's never enough money at the end of the month.
Mm-hmm.
So
Right. Because it's
I,
a belief
I like to
system. A
say,
paradigm is a
yeah,
belief system. Yeah.
exactly. And we don't know what we don't know, which is a really
Mm-hmm.
important framework to start with. So when you don't know what you don't know, well, then when somebody introduces something to you, instead of just that trigger, that old response from mom or dad or grandpa or grandma, you want to start thinking as an adult, like swirl in your mind and go, geez, she's talking about this. I'm not even aware of that. Maybe getting some
Mm-hmm.
research on that or getting some information. So that's really how you start to crack the block for paradigm shifting.
I love that. A few things that you said are like bringing up memories in my mind as you're talking of things that I've done and had to go through myself before my business was able to succeed. And one of
Yes.
them is that I had a spot that I used to go and spend time with God. And I would just like, there were trees, and it was just like the second I got up there, it was like the weight came off. I could just be me. I would
Mhm.
sit and journal, or I'd listen to music, or like it
Yep.
was just my like kind of healing place that like allowed me to
Mhm.
look at things without judgment. There's no judgment on our
Right.
parents, there's no
Right.
judgment on anything. It just is what it is. Right? But it doesn't
Free
have
thought.
to
Mhm.
affect me. Like, I'm not
Right.
judging them, but I also
Right.
don't have to continue to carry that with me either.
Right. Exactly right. I mean, here's a great example. Thanksgiving, you're making a roast and you cut off both ends of the roast and put it in a pan. And somebody says, so why do you cut off both ends of the roast? I don't know. That's just how my mom did it.
Mhm.
Why'd your mom do it that way? Well, that's the way her grandma did it. My grandma did. Okay, so did you ever ask your mom or grandma why they cut off the ends of the roast? And the answer was because the pan I was using it wouldn't fit into the pan I was using. But 2 generations later, the pans that were being used were sufficiently big enough for the roast, but the butts were still cut off. That's an easy one, but it goes down to just bare essentials like that. Mhm.
And it shows up in so many ways, like it but especially in our money, right? Like, that is one of the biggest
Big time.
places
Yep.
it shows
And our
up. Like,
health,
it oh, yeah, no, that's a good point.
health and money.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then, there's also this thing of like the no judgment, and I don't have to also take it with me. You also have to get to this place of, and the reason I said it is what it is because I've already done the work of like forgiving them and just being like, they did the best they
Right.
could at the time with what
Yep.
they had, and
Exactly.
that's okay. Like, they were in a different time, like,
Yep.
and as you grow, which I think is why when you're around like 40, all of a sudden you're like, wait, life's not nearly as easy as I thought it was as a kid. Like,
Uh-huh.
there's all of these things that
Yeah,
start to
you're
show up.
questioning a lot of things because you feel like you've lived half your life already, which
That
is,
too.
yeah, which
Yeah.
is how most people think.
I wonder if this is one of the reasons that and I'm sure it is, but just like to talk about it, one of the reasons that we deal with like imposter syndrome, or,
Mhm.
like sabotaging ourselves in a way and not even realizing we're doing it, but we
Right.
don't realize, like, we think it's our own issue. And so, but imposter syndrome has become a very
Okay.
commonly used word. Like, a lot of people know what that means because we're all
Yes,
dealing with it in some way, shape, or
absolutely.
form.
Absolutely. And imposter syndrome is, I mean, it's almost a psychological term now because it's been dug into through psychologists and, science and things like that. And imposter syndrome completely starts from paradigms, completely, because you're trying to reinvent yourself to somebody, but you've still got the ball and chain around your ankle from those paradigms that you've not released and you've not repatterned yet through repetition.
Oh, that's huge. So not
Yeah.
only do you have to release it, but then that's why you were also saying it takes 90 days, not 30,
Yes.
to create new
Yes.
patterns, is because
Yes.
you've got to release it, but now you've also got to put new patterns in its place.
Yes. And the brain, our brain doesn't know if we're telling a lie or telling the truth. It doesn't. So you could be lying to yourself saying you're not worthy, you're not good enough, you'll never make, X amount, or you'll never be part of that group, or you'll never make it in this sport, or you'll never get married to somebody that's going to treat you right. That kills more people. It's self-sabotage. And so the imposter syndrome happens when you're sitting in between the crossroads,
Mm-hmm.
which road am I going to take? And if you choose to take the road less traveled, then that means you've got to reinvent. But you've got to first recognize, make new patterns, change them, and implement them over time and repetition. You'll get through the imposter syndrome, but it takes time.
And
Yeah,
grace for yourself as well, which is what I was getting ready to say,
absolutely.
because
So good.
everything you're saying,
So
like
good.
90 days, it takes time. Like all of it takes time, whether it's starting a new business,
Yeah,
whether it's, learning how to redo these, like all of this stuff. It's the same thing I tell my clients all the time when we're kind of in the messy middle, so to speak, of we've pulled some stuff
yeah,
out. It looks a little worse than maybe it did. A few areas are starting to look better. And they're
right.
trying to decide if they want to continue till we get the whole house gone through. And I always
Oh
tell them,
man.
I'm like, listen, think about how long it took for it to get this way. If you
Yes.
think
So
about that,
good.
we're not going to just overnight fix, quote unquote, all of these things. Like we have to
Right.
take our time and work our way through the different areas of the
Yes.
home. And same way with
Yes.
ourselves and our emotions and our thoughts. And like we have to take the time, but it's so worth taking the time, because once
Yes.
all of that stuff is off of you, like you look at life differently, you feel different, you speak
Yes.
different, it's so
You
worth
have
it.
different peers that support your growth. We may have to change friendships because, you're most aligned with the five closest friendships you have. So, whatever level those friendships are, whatever their traditions are, whatever they do for fun and, all that jazz, that's where you're going to stay. And if that's not okay with you, then you need to step outside the box and reinvent. And believe me, the universe just works this way. When you open your mind to it and you focus on it, what you focus on expands. And so that expansion brings in the right people at the right time.
Yeah,
Mm.
what you focus on expands. And it's so
Yep.
true. And and it's the same thing of like whatever we focus on, it's kind of like when you get a new car and all of a sudden you start seeing that car everywhere.
Yeah,
Like our brain is
exactly. Yeah.
working constantly,
Because
even when we don't know it is.
you're bringing the unconscious, subconscious to the conscious
Yeah.
level. That's
Yeah.
exactly right.
Yeah, and
Yep,
so
that's
which is
exactly right.
why our thoughts are so powerful, and why choosing our thoughts and being aware of our thoughts,
Mhm.
that's exactly why it was so game changing for me when that
Yes.
idea was brought to me,
Yeah.
because it had never been presented to me to where I was
Yeah.
like, "Oh, I just always thought that whatever I thought was just what I thought, and I just kept on going." Like I had never taken the time to
Yeah.
look at it. And the second I
Yeah.
did, it expanded. And all of a sudden, all of these new things are being brought to me that I'm like,
Right. Right.
wow.
Right. Well, and you know, just as to support that, what you resist persists. So think about that.
Mm,
What you focus on expands, but what you resist persists. So if you're resisting, the money conversation, or you're resisting to get a new healthy lifestyle to drop the 20 pounds that you've been carrying too long. So if you're resisting it, it's going to persist. And that is
Yeah.
just the way life is. And that's the way the world works.
Yeah, just being aware of the fact that, like, wait,
Yep.
what am I resisting? Like, or what am I
Yep.
focusing on? Because then that, exactly what you said earlier, that starts to bring awareness. And then, if you know, and I'm sure that's in your
Yep.
download, like if they'll go get your download, like every
Yep.
conversation I've had with you has been phenomenal. Like, I wish our phone call could have been recorded the other day, because it was,
Oh,
we
that
were
was
like
so great.
finishing each other's sentences. Like, it was
Yeah.
so good.
Sister from another
And
mother.
yeah, well, and it's like, if I didn't have the podcast, which I would have never had the podcast if I hadn't done the work. And the people
Right.
I meet from
Right.
having this podcast are exactly what you said. It's like another level of people. The
Yes.
second, yeah, because I opened myself up, I did the work, I took a look at it. Like,
Yes.
it was painful at times, like so painful,
Absolutely.
but beautiful, all wrapped into one, right? Like,
Absolutely. If you've ever had family members with addictions, it's the same thing because, and I have lost my mother to alcoholism, lost my sister to alcoholism, have two sober sisters and a father who's sober, and combined for like 65 years, the three of them. So I never had the issue because I was
mm,
always in the gym. I was always, my body was my temple. So I never got that urge, thank the Lord.
yeah.
But the whole aspect of detoxification, it's like getting the crap out of your body, getting the body back to where God intended it to be, operating fully functioning on itself, by itself,
Mm-hmm.
without drugs, without chemicals, etc. So that detox process is really similar to, paradigm shifting, because it does look messy and ugly and it feels like crap. It doesn't feel good. And so people resist it. But man, when you get to the other side, and I see my sisters after a month and their faces are glowing and they've got a smile and they've got a pep in their step, things like that, they've got a focus for their future. Oh my God, it's like it's worth it. But you have to
Yes,
you have to
absolutely.
you have to take ownership and step into it. Yeah.
Yeah, and which is another huge piece of, like, anyone that's dealt with addiction, or, anything that we all deal with.
Mhm.
Forgiveness. It's kind of like that thing where you were saying, the
Mhm. Mm.
what we resist persists, right? It's the
Yes.
unforgived things that continue to show up and show up and show up and beat you up and mess
Absolutely.
with you. The
Same.
biggest thing I ever forgave, or person, was myself.
You know what? We do. We have to forgive ourselves also.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, and for me, it was so easy to be like, well, of course my parents did the best they could, or of course like, for me, all of that
Right.
came very easy. And I didn't even
Mhm.
realize that the stuff that was holding me back was the unforgiveness of myself. And then one
Wow.
day, I don't like, the day it hit me, I mean, I just broke and started weeping, because
Mhm.
it had never dawned on me until that moment that I was holding judgment against myself. I would so easily forgive everyone else, but when it came to me,
Yes.
I had so much judgment of myself. And
Wow.
when I allowed that to leave, and I started to replace
Yeah.
it with, like, no, I did the best I could at the time with what I knew.
Right.
Like,
With the tools you had at the time.
yes.
Absolutely. That is so
Yeah.
powerful, honestly, Samantha. It's so important in the process of growth. I will tell, especially women who I love working with, is you'll never out earn the level of your personal growth. So
Mm.
you think you want to earn 10,000 a month, okay? But your confidence level and your learning about yourself and peeling the onion back is a 5 out of 10. You're not going to get to that place of, just saying it 10 times a day or writing it down 10 times a day. It doesn't work that way. Yeah, all the chemicals have to be aligned in the body, the frequency, the chemicals, all that. So,
Yeah, and well, and that makes sense too, right? But, like, we we want the easy path sometimes, and rightfully so. Like, we're
most of the
human,
time.
having a human experience. But what I've learned is the stuff that's worth it is hard. but it's worth the
Yes.
consistency. It's worth the work. It's worth and it's the same
Yes.
thing with the gym, right? Like, you got to be
Yes.
consistent. You've got to put in the work.
Mhm.
You've got, like, all of those things apply to business. They apply
Yep.
to our inner work. They apply to
Right.
everything in life that is
Everything.
goals that we're trying to achieve. It's the same
Mhm.
concepts. Everyone wants
Yep.
a hack for everything.
I know.
A lot, like,
So
it drives
true.
me nuts, to be honest with you. Like, I'm like, there's not necessarily a hack. The hack is be consistent, put in the work, let's go. Like, be committed.
And feel the pain. You've got to feel that pain. You've got to allow yourself to just weep and
Yeah.
have a, crying spell or whatever you do to get rid of it. Because otherwise it just bottles up inside. And those negative toxicities in our bodies are what cause disease. Toxic chemicals from foods we eat, air we breathe, products we use, water we drink, formulas we use in our kitchen to wash the counters. It's all absorbed into our cells. And so detoxification of bad habits, bad old paradigms, you have to detox on a cellular level. Brain, body, spirit.
That's beautiful.
So,
And I'm glad that you said, and you have to feel the pain, because it's that
mhm.
concept. And I think the chick at the life coach had said it, but I was listening to a podcast once, and she was talking about how the feelings we don't feel, or that we're trying to push down, are like trying to
Oh
push a
boy.
beach ball under the water. Like, the more you can
Yes.
hold
Oh,
on
that's
to it,
good.
you can push it
That's
down, but
good.
the second that, like it's going to eventually come up, like it just is.
Yeah, that's a great analogy. I love that. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
And,
true.
I would much rather stuff come up when I'm sitting and, like, in a place where I can, like, thoroughly feel it and allow it to move
Yeah.
through my body
Yeah.
and be gone, versus when I'm trying to
Mhm.
talk to a client, or when I'm trying, like, I used to be the person, like, honestly, I just had the memory. I used to be the person that was constantly on the verge of tears. I don't know why.
Oh, wow.
I was just always constantly on the verge of tears. Someone would look at me the wrong way,
Wow.
my eyes would tear up. Someone would, speak to me wrong, and my eyes would tear up. Like, everybody I
Wow.
knew, I don't know how many times I heard, Samantha, you need to get a backbone. Like, that was a
Wow.
theme of my life for a moment.
Wow. Wow. Wow.
Yes.
So did you
Yeah.
look at your parents? Was your mom somebody that was spineless
Oh, both
or
of my
was
parents were. Yeah, both of my
okay,
parents were.
you
And
had
neither
both.
one of them had confidence either. Like,
Uh-huh.
they,
Mhm.
and so that's why for me it was such a big shift in my life of, like,
Huge.
what huge. The more that I learned and the
Huge.
more that I grew, then all of a sudden it's like, used to, it was hard to get clients, or as I was starting my business, I might have sporadic ones, and that's expected when you first start a business. Like, that's a given. You
Right.
just
Of
started something
course.
new. But
Yeah.
whenever you go in to work with a client, like, they're your biggest marketing. Like, however they feel when you leave, the experience that you give
Yes.
them, all of the
Yes.
stuff. And if you're so busy dealing with your own stuff that, they mention something and you just start blubbering, but they're trying to heal, like, it's not a good
No.
look for a
No.
professional, that's going into people's homes. And so
Yeah.
that's whenever I first started getting certified as a life coach, is because I had started my business and I kept hitting what felt like a brick wall, right? Like, with my clients, with my
Wow.
money, with the business, like, it just felt like I couldn't push forward. And so I was like, I need more tools, like, especially dealing with clients,
Oh,
because
that's so good.
I
Yeah.
wanted to help them organize their home, but I also wanted to help them emotionally, because I knew that the physical space was
Yes.
a representation of what was going on the inside. And so
Yes.
that's what
Yes. Yes.
started me down the life coaching path. And that's what started opening my mind to, like, oh, I've got to deal with this stuff if I ever want to succeed in
Yes.
life.
Right. So good.
Yeah.
So good. And you know what? Because you did that, the women that you work with organization and cleansing their homes, but really it's a cleanse of their inner child too.
And it gives me stories, right? Like, that's the other thing, is because I was
Yeah.
willing
Oh,
to
sure.
feel the pain, it gives me
Yeah.
I'm able to connect with them in a way that if I had not dealt with that stuff, I would not be able to connect with them because now they're
Right.
going through something very similar to what I've already walked
Mhm.
through. So now
Mhm.
I know how to
Yes.
help them and relate to
Yes.
them.
That's the whole thing with coaching online today is there's so many coaches that will take a 2-week seminar or, study something for 6 months and call themselves a coach. But it's those coaches that have lived the experience over
Mhm.
time that have the wisdom to partake and, transfer to somebody else. And,
Yeah.
I-
And
you
and it
know,
matters. I
it,
love coaching. I
it
love
does.
coaching.
Yeah.
But like you're
Yeah.
saying, the coach has to have already walked a lot of her own path to
Yeah.
be
Yeah.
able to look back and help. And that was always
Absolutely.
my prayer was like, God, please
Mm,
like help me impart, wisdom and love and all the things that need to be imparted to other people. Like since
right.
I've gone through all of
Right.
this, let me now help pull them forward faster than what it took me.
That's exactly right. That was my pivot point getting out of retirement because my first business was 1990
Oh,
and I built
wow.
it for 7 years. And it was a networking company and I didn't know what I was doing. But when my husband wanted out of our 16-year marriage, I found myself with a 9 and a 2-year-old. And that was my like low point. So
Mhm.
moved into a new house, got out of that neighborhood and said to myself, am I going to have to go back to work? Am I going to have to get a job? Thankfully, I had built a business that sustained us for 20 years on recurring income without me doing anything except for using my products personally. So when COVID hit, the kids were out of the
Mm.
nest. They both graduated from college, and I was getting bored. And so a girlfriend who I worked with in my first company kept calling me, kept calling me, kept calling me. And I said, okay, let me just try the products. And one thing led to another. Seeing the moms at home doing their, telecommuting because of COVID lockdown, kids at home on Zoom classroom, these mothers just, it broke my heart. I mean, it just, in my soul, I felt so sick for these moms
Mhm.
who were just, I've got to be home for my kids. I can't not believe that this is what they're learning in school, things like that. And I said, Jeanette, Susan's right. You have way too much, 25, 30,000 hours invested in my craft. I needed just to get caught up with technology. So I took 2.5 years with different coaches, getting my platform set up and, doing the work to understand how
Mhm.
this automated world works today. But it's still going back to basics when I worked with women. It's really the heart, getting into the heart.
I
So,
love what you're doing. Like honestly, it's very similar to what I'm doing, but in a different niche. But that, I mean,
mhm.
but it's an amazing, beautiful thing. Which actually leads us to I will make sure that the freebie is in the show notes. And then if you
Yeah,
will tell
and I'll send
everyone
you
like where they
that.
can find you.
Okay, yep. Just my name.com, but I'll send you the link. You can put in the show notes.
Yeah. Yep. All the
And
links
I'm
that will be in
totally,
the show notes.
and I love hearing from women. They might report back to you or whatever, but when they have breakthroughs, oh my gosh, that's just my happy place.
Oh my
Love,
goodness. I
love
would
getting the
love, yes, yes. If anyone has from
yeah.
this conversation, if you have any kind of like had an aha moment or you had anything, like please put it in the
Mm,
comments because we do
yes,
this and this takes up a lot of my time and a lot of my days and a lot of my energy and effort. But it's so worth it when I meet someone and they're like, oh my goodness. And then they start telling me all the stuff that, like, this episode did this, or I learned this, or
yes,
whatever it looks
yes,
like,
yes,
and so
for sure.
that's when I know it's worth it is when someone actually lets
Mhm.
me know, like, hey, what you were talking about was amazing, or I connected with it, or whatever.
Right.
Yeah. And for those of you listening, make sure that you come join us in the group coaching community because Miss Jeanette is going to come do one of our group coaching. We have an expert come in every single month, and she's going to be our
So
expert.
great.
Yeah, here in a few months. Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Pro Organizers Coach podcast. Go to proorganizerscoach.com to find all the ways that we can help you succeed in your business. Remember, you have the power to make a difference in people's lives through decluttering and organization. So keep honing your skills, embracing those challenges, and fostering connections. Girl, you've got this.